Good morning, friends. I bring you greetings from MCC Hartford in Connecticut, and I want to say that it's been a true joy to be among you all weekend long, and a particular gift to be invited to preach here this morning. So thank you for having us and your hospitality all weekend long, including now. Will you pray with me, please? God of all creation, who is still creating, and I would add, God of all butterflies. We gather this morning to hear a word from you. We gather surrounded by beautiful expressions of your creative genius and artistic magnificence. We gather warmed by your love and impassioned by your spirit. Open our eyes to see as you see. Open our ears to hear as you hear. Open our hearts to love as you love. And open us now to the message you have for us this morning, that we might be transformed and changed by you. We pray this in your many holy and sacred names. Amen.
Amen.
Well, I want to share first that it was truly delightful to spend time planning this trip to Bethlehem. My imagination, which I have a wild imagination, ran rampant in making a pilgrimage here and wondered, would I need to follow a star? When I arrived, would there be room at the inn? While we were here together, would we witness birth or rebirth?
Yes.
Or might we experience transformation? Would something happen that would change us forever in this place called Bethlehem? I admit it was far more comfortable to make this journey by car and not by camel or donkey. And for that, I am truly grateful that I am not sore or smelly as I imagine the Holy Family might have been. We don't talk about those things. Amen. Well, isn't everything a journey, though? And I'm certain that all of us, especially us LGBTQ folks, have heard the words and experienced the feeling. There is no room at the inn. Certainly, this is more true these days, with cake bakers, military bands, and bathroom policing. To be honest, that feeling of unwelcome and sense of not belonging was something I have felt for as long as I can remember. Being born with female anatomy set my journey onto a contrary direction, and I would even add unnatural direction. I didn't fit in anywhere, and worse still, I was not comfortable with me. No room at the inn didn't seem to matter much because I did not travel very far from the safety of my home. It is widely accepted in scientific circles that as much as 93% of our communication is done bodily and non-verbally, which helps to explain why I felt, as perhaps many transgender folk feel, that we are communicating in the wrong language. This is quite disorienting, to be sure. I see it not very different than if we started a journey toward the original Bethlehem, and how foreign that would feel and how difficult to navigate, having no sense of familiarity or commonality. This was my life's journey, struggling to communicate in a highly gendered world through a body that spoke the wrong gender language, and there was no star to guide me. No wonder that still today I have a challenge with a sense of direction. The deeper disconnect was between the inside and outside of me. What people saw was not who I knew myself to be, and I felt like an actor who was playing a lead role in a life that was not my own. All of that began to change 10 years ago, when the Holy Spirit stirred in me a passion and led me up the mountain toward transition and transfiguration. Transfiguration, that is. God made it clear to me before I was ordained in August 2008 that I could not minister in God's name unless I was authentic. I am certain that I was called to transition as part of my call to ministry. I took my family aside, those who were closest to me, and revealed myself to them. It was not on a mountaintop. It was at the Durham Fair, which is an agricultural fair that's held every year in Durham, Connecticut. Right outside the pig and the beef tents, okay? I just want you to get this. So it was a tent revival of a different sort. Amen? I was absolutely glowing. Some accepted and some were frightened. And in that moment, I was changed forever. This began a true pilgrimage, not to Bethlehem, but to discover and then release me. The me that I felt I had to hide away all these years. You can probably see now why I love this morning's scripture so much about the transfiguration of Jesus. Truth be told, this story resonates deeply with me, and in many respects, it's not just his story, it is my story, and in part, a wonderful history of God's ongoing creation in the world. As context, this scripture marks the end of Jesus' public ministry, and after this event, Jesus will turn toward Jerusalem and the cross. So it is significant that as Jesus begins a new chapter, one that would bring deeper meaning and purpose to his life, Jesus begins by letting go of what was, the confusion and misconceptions about who he is, and finally lives into his greater truth. It is in this intimate moment that Jesus shares himself fully with those he holds most dear, Peter, James, and John. Jesus takes these friends up the mountain to be alone. Queer scholars often refer to this moment as Jesus coming out, for it is in this moment that Jesus shares his deepest truth about who he is with those he loves. No words are spoken or necessary. Jesus is simply transfigured before their very eyes. The very presence and glory of God was spoken through body language. The word transfigure originates with the Greek word metamorpho, which means to transform, to change into another form. According to Strong's Concordance, meta is broken into two parts: meta, which means change, and morpho, that means to change form, in keeping with inner reality. Metamorpho is the word we use, or what brings us to the word metamorphosis. And it's interesting, as the Holy Spirit moves, it is not coincidental that butterflies came up this morning. Just saying, amen? Amen. You see the Holy Spirit move, and that's a Holy Spirit moment I had this morning.
Yes.
So this is the same language that we were transgender used to describe gender transition. We seek to make the outside match an inner reality. And in the process, we too are transfigured, transformed, and have metamorphosis. For Jesus, transfiguration meant to match the outside humanness with the inside divine reality. The what people saw was not who Jesus knew himself to be. In that unspoken moment, Jesus was made whole and holy, complete and authentic, publicly. In the unspoken moment of my own transition, physical, legally, and socially, I too became whole, complete, and authentic, publicly, and connected with that which is holy. I believe it was less a coming out and more a becoming. In the scripture, we see the ancestor spirits join Jesus in affirmation, if not celebration, of his becoming, while his friends were frozen in their fear. It seems there will always be those who accept, and others who might be frightened as we begin to live our truth. When that truth is outside norms and expectations, it can become uncomfortable and even frightening for others. It is in this mystical and yet miraculous moment of truth that a voice from a cloud says, "This is my Son whom I love. Listen to him." If this language sounds familiar to you, it is, because it is almost identical to the moment Jesus is baptized, when the heavens opened and a voice said, "This is my Son, the beloved, with whom I am well pleased." As if confirming the baptism and reminding Jesus of something quite important, if not essential, God says once again, "You are mine. You are mine, and I love you." This time, Jesus is not spiritually transformed. He is physically transfigured. And God responds again with clarity that Jesus is a child of God in any and every shape and form, and spiritually, and that Jesus is loved by God. The moment of revelation passes. Jesus and the 3 disciples descend from the mountain, and Jesus directs them not to say anything to anyone about this. It was not time for Jesus to show the world and face the risk that would mean. This moment was intimate, vulnerable, and grounding. The world is easy to navigate and to wrestle with when we are surrounded by those we love and who love us, and when we remember we are God's and God's beloved. In that moment of transfiguration, Jesus is affirmed in identity and enveloped with love. And I believe that it is absolutely true for us as well when we experience our becoming in the presence of God, surrounded by love. It is important to note that Jesus was again on the move, for he was not to stay on the mountain to revel in the joy and glory. He and the disciples needed to keep moving, for the calling and ministry must resume. We remember well the story of the passion that would follow. Jesus would be shamed and shunned and ultimately scourged and crucified. The crowds did not believe who Jesus said he was. Jesus Christ died misidentified. And sadly, I believe it is still true to this day, seen every time Jesus is used to discriminate. We who are transgender know all too well the risks associated with others not believing who we say we are. We too are misidentified. For us, it is name and gender. The world hasn't changed much since the Roman occupation. There are just new Romans and religious leaders, zealous religious leaders. Sadly, the Transgender Day of Remembrance testifies to this reality every year. I believe there is a clear message in the scripture passage this morning, and with it a wonderful invitation to begin a journey with Jesus that will take us beyond Bethlehem and birth to become whole, complete, and authentic, to experience true revelation, joy, and glory, and yes, become whole and even holy in the becoming of who we are, a rebirth. In that moment, all the pieces of our true selves that we give away each day to conform to the world fade away in the dazzling, I love the word, dazzling reality of who we are as a child of God, who God calls beloved. Jesus did not conform, we know that. Jesus did just the opposite. He came down from that mountain and went on to transform people, faith, and community in a world that, like today, sought to punish transformers as transgressors. Here's the thing. We are all being transformed. Yes. Praise God.
Yes, praise God.
Amen. Amen. And we are all on a pilgrimage to find ourselves, our true selves. And with this discover our life's meaning and purpose in a world that seeks to define and control us. The good news today, and there is much, is that we are all being changed and transformed. We are indeed becoming, and all that God is creating. Yes, we are still in the process of being created. And we too will be called to let go of the old for the new along the way. Dear ones, may our journey continue as we look for and discover our true selves through the divine revelations that transform us in our lives. If we listen, we can still hear God say that we are God's and we are beloved. That's the identity and the only names that matter is beloved and that we are God's. In those moments, we can let go of the confusion and misconceptions to live into our truth. And like Jesus, we will be set free to fly like butterflies and to live fully as whole and even holy. So let us accept the wonderful invitation to join the journey. We may stop at a place called coming out, but let us not stay too long, for we have to keep moving toward the greater experience of becoming. I believe there is an even greater truth, a meta-narrative, if you will, that is an important message for today. That our transfiguration transformation, and our metamorphosis is more than about gender and sexual identities. It is perhaps, that our journey is the same as it was for Jesus, to match the outside humanness with the inside divine reality. Only then can our body language finally be aligned, when our inner divine reality speaks through our bodies, the one true language, that of God, that of love, and of that which is holy. Jesus' body spoke this language, and God has asked us to listen to him. May our bodies speak this language too. Ultimately, it is love that fills us with joy, hope, and possibility, and makes us dazzling. Yes, dazzling. Not on just the mountaintop, but everywhere we go. May it be so and true for each and every one.